Cold air hangs over a shattered German town in the spring of 1945. Rubble lines the street. Brick dust coats boots and coats. Smoke drifts from a distant fire. A U.S. Army medic kneels beside a line of civilians and prisoners gathered near a bombed-out schoolhouse. His helmet is scuffed, his sleeves are rolled. He opens a canvas bag. Inside are bandages, morphine, water, and small bars wrapped in paper. He hands one to a woman standing apart. She is thin, her dress hangs loose, her hands shake as she takes it. The paper feels stiff, the bar smells clean. She stares at it, then at him. Years of total war had stripped daily life to the bare minimum. Soap had become a rare item. Civilian rationing in Germany had tightened steadily since 1942. By late 1944, many households had not seen fresh soap for months. Hygiene suffered. Disease spread more easily in overcrowded shelters and camps. The U.S. Army entered Germany with vast logistical support. American doctrine stressed supply. Medical units carried not only drugs and dressings, but basic hygiene items. Soap was standard issue. It reduced infection. It restored a sense of order. Medics were trained to treat enemy wounded as well as their own. The Geneva Conventions required humane treatment of prisoners of war. By 1945, the U.S. Army had processed millions of German POWs across Europe. Many were held temporarily in open-air enclosures along the Rhine. Others were civilians caught in combat zones, detained for security screening. German civilians faced deep uncertainty. Propaganda had warned them of Allied brutality. Years of state control had framed the enemy as inhuman. As American units advanced, they encountered women, elderly men, and children who had endured bombing, hunger, and forced labor. Some were displaced from eastern territories. Others had lost homes to air raids. Medical care inside Germany had collapsed. Hospitals lacked supplies. Trained staff were scarce. In many areas, U.S. Army medics became the first reliable source of treatment civilians had seen in months. Technology shaped this moment. The U.S. Army Medical Corps used standardized kits. Canvas bags held sulfa drugs, iodine gauze, and soap. Jeeps and trucks allowed rapid movement. Field hospitals followed close behind combat units. German medical services relied on rail lines that no longer functioned. Allied air power had shattered infrastructure. The imbalance was stark. It was visible in small objects: a clean bandage, a bar of soap. For the woman in the line, the human angle was simple and raw. She had lived under constant stress, air raid sirens, nights in cellars, days spent searching for food. She had washed with cold water when possible. Her skin showed it, so did her clothes. The bar in her hands represented cleanliness and dignity. It was not a luxury. It was proof that someone saw her as a person worth care. Her reaction was not uncommon. Allied soldiers recorded similar moments in letters and diaries. Civilians crying over bread, chocolate, cigarettes, or soap. These were not grand gestures. They were small acts that cut through years of deprivation. From a tactical angle, this exchange took place in a controlled rear area. Combat units had moved on. Security teams screened civilians. Medics operated under guard. Their role extended beyond battlefield care. They stabilized populations, prevented disease outbreaks, reduced resistance, treating civilians, and post-eased occupation. It lowered the risk of typhus and dysentery. It also reinforced Allied authority. Order followed care. The medic did not act alone. He was part of a system designed to manage millions in a defeated nation. The technological angle highlights logistics over weapons. The U.S. Army could spare soap because its industrial base remained intact. Factories in the United States produced at scale. Shipping lanes stayed open. Medical supplies crossed the Atlantic in steady streams. This capacity mattered as much as tanks or planes. It allowed the Allies to transition from combat to occupation without pause. Hygiene kits became tools of stability. They supported public health in a shattered country. From the enemy perspective, this moment challenged years of indoctrination. German civilians had been told the Allies would exact revenge. Some feared mass reprisals. Instead, many encountered discipline and basic care. This did not erase the reality of defeat. It did not undo war crimes or responsibility. but it reshaped immediate experience. For some, it marked the first crack in the narrative they had lived under since 1933. The turning point of the war came fast in the West. On March 7, 1945, U.S. forces captured the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen intact. Within weeks, Allied armies poured into the German heartland. The Ruhr was encircled. Over 300,000 German troops were captured in April alone. Cities like Cologne, Frankfurt, and Nuremberg fell. Resistance collapsed unevenly. Some units fought on, others surrendered at first contact. Civilian authority dissolved. Local Nazi officials fled or hid. As fronts dissolved, the number of displaced persons surged. Former forced laborers, camp survivors, refugees, and prisoners moved through the same roads. Medical crises followed. Lice-borne diseases threatened entire regions. Allied command recognized the danger. They ordered immediate sanitation measures: delousing stations, vaccinations, distribution of soap and clean clothing. Medics worked long hours. They treated malnutrition, infections, and wounds inflicted by years of war. The woman receiving the soap stood at the intersection of these forces. She was not a policymaker or a soldier. She was a civilian caught in history's machinery. Her tears marked a personal turning point. The war was no longer an abstract collapse. It was present in her hands. The enemy was no longer a distant threat. He was kneeling in front of her. This was also the moment when the nature of Allied victory became visible, not only in captured cities or surrendered armies, but in how power was exercised. Care did not excuse the past. It did not remove accountability. Trials would come. Occupation would be strict. But the immediate priority was survival, stability, preventing further death. The aftermath of these encounters shaped post-war Germany. Allied occupation authorities expanded public health programs. They reopened hospitals, restarted water systems, distributed food and hygiene supplies. Millions of Germans survived the immediate post-war period, in part because of these measures. Losses remained immense. Civilian deaths from bombing and displacement numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Disease and hunger claimed more in the first year after surrender. Yet mass epidemics were largely avoided in the Western zones. For us medics, these moments left lasting impressions. Many had joined to save lives under fire. Few expected to become symbols of relief to former enemies. Letters home describe confusion, empathy, and exhaustion. They treated children with scabies, elderly men with infected wounds, women weakened by hunger. They followed orders, they did their jobs. In doing so, they shaped how the defeated remembered the victors. Strategically, this approach eased reconstruction. It reduced hostility. It allowed new political structures to form under Allied oversight. West Germany would later align with the United States during the Cold War. Trust did not emerge overnight. But early acts of humane treatment mattered. They set a tone. They showed that defeat did not have to mean annihilation. The world learned hard lessons from this war. Total war stripped civilians of safety and dignity. Logistics proved as decisive as firepower. Ideology collapsed fastest when confronted with lived reality. A bar of soap could carry more meaning than a speech. It represented order returning where chaos had ruled. This moment teaches restraint and responsibility. Power carries choices. How a victor treats the defeated shapes the peace that follows. In 1945, amid ruins and grief, small acts of care helped pull a broken society back from the edge. The war ended with surrender documents and battlefield victories. It also ended in quiet exchanges like this one, where humanity reappeared in the simplest form, held in a trembling hand.